One of the more underrated games in Week 14 is the Memphis Tigers and Tulane Green Wave. These are two teams with explosive offenses that have gone in seemingly different directions as the season has progressed, and it's still going to be a really fun game to watch. I think that both teams have a lot still left to play for, and there's going to be a lot of exciting things going on in this game. Memphis is a team that expected to be in the college football playoff this year. Obviously, that did not go as planned. They are not going to make that happen, but they're still sitting at 9-2. This is a very exciting season for the Memphis Tigers in terms of record, maybe not necessarily compared to where their goals were in the preseason. This is still a team that is a very tough team to beat and a team that has an explosive offense, averaging 35 points a game. They go against a Tulane team that has surprised a lot of us. The with John Summerall coming to Tulane, I think there was an expectation that maybe there would be a little bit of a transitional period. And at least early in the season, it did look like that. Since then, though, they have been phenomenal. They have rattled off wins like it's their day job, and they are definitely one of the more difficult teams to beat. Now, the playoff is not in store for that Tulane team. I think that that's still something that belongs to Boise State and then maybe a couple teams ahead of them. But this is a team that, I talked about this when we were looking at the games this past weekend. If Boise State were to lose to Wyoming, I don't know if there's a resume for the group of five that's worthy of making the playoff. And I said it was there's no team that there might not be a team that's worthy. And while that is still true, Tulane is definitely a team that's playing on a different level right now. The problem is that the resume doesn't really give them an opportunity to go into the playoff. So Boise State's probably getting that spot, but that still doesn't mean that Tulane is going to give up. This is a Tulane team. They're favored by 13 points, which is just wild. To think that Tulane would be favored by 30, if you told me in the preseason that Tulane was going to be favored by 13 points against the Memphis Tigers, the team that everyone expected to be competing for a playoff spot, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. I honestly would. That's how crazy this is. But that's also an indication of where these two teams are at. Memphis has struggled as of late. Tulane is on fire. That's just how it's gone. The big questions for each team will probably dictate a lot in this game. For Memphis is how do you limit the big plays? Can you limit the big plays? Those are really big questions you have to answer if you're Memphis because Tulane has explosive weapons. They have some really good players on the offensive side of the ball. And at times, Memphis's defense has allowed big plays and has struggled to slow down certain teams. That is what's hurt them so far this year. And honestly, it's what took away their playoff hopes. So if you're able to do that, you're going to add back-to-back 10-win seasons for Ryan Silverfield. You are going to feel really good about what you have done, despite the fact that you didn't make the playoff. For Tulane, the biggest question: how do you confuse Hennigan? Seth Hennigan is one of the best quarterbacks in the AAC, if not the best. He is a quarterback that has plenty of talent around him. You look at what Memphis brings to the table, there are a ton of weapons that they can utilize. How do you confuse him? John Summerall is a great defensive mind. Tulane has plenty of talent on the defensive side of the ball, and finding ways to slow down this Memphis offense pretty much stems from their ability to confuse Seth Hennigan into thinking it's one coverage when it's not, sending pressures, different looks, that kind of stuff. The matchup to watch, which kind of is incorporated in that key, is Memphis' wide receivers against Tulane's defensive backs. Tulane has some really good defensive backs. They played really well this year. Memphis has really good wide receivers. Brock Taylor is the leader of that group. Demaric Blankenship has been pretty good. Kobe Drake has stepped up in a big way. You have plenty of talent for Seth Hennigan to utilize, and Tulane is going to have their hands full trying to stop that. Now, for Tulane, the impact players that you're looking at, everything starts with Darian Mensa. This is a guy who has had tremendous success this year and a guy that we didn't really expect much from coming into the year because we just didn't know what he was capable of doing. When you talk about Tulane, you obviously were looking at, hey, we just lost Willie Fritz. We just lost a ton of talent on both sides of the ball. We're getting a new coach. There's lots of different things that go into this. Jerry Mentz has been Honestly, a huge surprise for this Tulane team. And he has stepped up in big ways, even in big games. The Kansas State and Oklahoma games, we saw some flashes of what he could do. And as of late, he has been a big reason why they've been successful. And he is someone that's going to dictate a lot about their chances to win this game as well as in the future as well. And he is a very fun quarterback to watch. John Summerall did a really good job of finding him in the roster and putting him in position to win football games. And so far, he's done a really good job. Now, it does help when you have Mekhi Hughes in the backfield with you. Mekhi Hughes is one of the more underrated running backs in college football. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. His season has been phenomenal. They also brought in some talent from the transfer portal. Mario Williams has been a huge addition, leading receiver for this team, a guy who kind of struggled a little bit early on, but kind of like Tulane, found his footing, and now he appears to be firing all cylinders. So you feel pretty good about where this offense is going. The defense, though, is what's really fun. Now, when you brought John Summerall to Tulane, I think there was some hope that the transition from Shieldwood to John Summerall was going to yield some benefits. And with the talent that you returned to Tulane, even with some of the departures, you felt pretty good. Tyler Grubb's coming back. Jesus Machado, Patrick Jenkins, you had a good core coming back where you thought maybe this could work. Maybe this could be a really good group defensively. And so far, they have not disappointed. The pairing of that talent with John Summerall has been a phenomenal combination. And it's a big reason why Tulane has been successful in addition to his offense. The defense has been the staple of this team, and they have been really fun to watch while the offense kind of sorted itself out. And Patrick Jenkins is an absolute stud. If there's one player that Memphis has to worry about, it's Patrick Jenkins. They have plenty of guys, but Jenkins is a guy who is a massive, massive problem if you're not careful. Now, the impact players for Memphis, everything obviously starts with Seth Hennigan. We talked about him. Kind of surprising that he hasn't thrown for 3,000 yards yet with the group that he has at wide receiver. You would have expected this to be a really big year. And granted, it's still going to be a solid season, but it also kind of explains why Memphis maybe hasn't been as successful as they thought. This is a year in which you probably should be pushing 4,000 yards if you're Seth Hennigan, and that's still possible, but you kind of expected a little bit more from him maybe this year than what you're getting. 21 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Again, maybe not exactly what you were hoping for, but at the same time, that's kind of just how the year has gone. Mario Anderson has been a really good addition as running back. And this is a Memphis team that has had plenty of talent options at running back, but they haven't really gotten that elite level play that we've seen from Mario Anderson at times this year. Now, Anderson and Brandon Thomas are going to be a really good 1-2 combination, and they're going to need them because of what Tulane brings to the table. Rock Taylor, we talked about him, the leading receiver for this Memphis team. He is someone who can be explosive and has big time playability. Going against those Tulane defensive backs really is going to dictate how successful this offense is. A guy who probably is flying under the radar after a huge season in 2023, Chandler Martin is doing all the same things in 2024, and we're not really talking about him, which is unfortunate. Chandler Martin's really fun to watch. He is someone that deserves a lot more love than he's getting. Davian Ross is going to have his hands full stopping that Tulane passing attack. The Memphis secondary will need to step up in a big way. Now, this is still a really fun game. Two 9-2 teams that are looking for double-digit wins, which would mean a lot for both of them for different ways. Tulane's obviously going into a new coach. They didn't expect to be here. They didn't expect this to happen. And really, what we've seen is them exceed expectations. Memphis is looking to, again, go with a 10-win season, finish that, and Ryan Silverfield is going to look a lot better. And even though it's disappointing, you still feel pretty good about winning 10 football games. That's really good. And next year, you're obviously just going to focus on a lot of different things, but maybe you can take that next step and get to an AAC championship, which is where Memphis really should be year in and year out. But still a really exciting game, a game that could have a ton of explosive plays, some really exciting fireworks, and a game featuring two teams that are playing really well. And it'll be really fun to see how this one turns out.